just made it harder, but it didn't make it impossible.
Yes.
And harder means it's doable. It's achievable, but it's not impossible, and it just needs more work.
Good day, everyone, and welcome to another wonderful podcast on another wonderful day. Speaking to Laura, which I'm looking forward to, as always, having that wonderful conversation. Now, I'm not going to try and blag this one because I can't quite pronounce her surname. I'm going to get her to pronounce her surname for me. Welcome, Laura. How do I pronounce your surname?
Gabayan, you put the emphasis on the second A. So Gabayan. But my nurses would always call me Dr. G.
Oh, really? Why do they call you Dr. G?
Because it was a hard last name. So Dr. G is easier.
I get you. All right, okay. So what you're going to do, you're going to help me. You're going to let me know what you do and what you do to help people, and we'll go with the flow from there.
So I'm a physician. I'm an ER physician, is what I trained as. Mm-hmm. And I'm also a scientist. So when I say scientist, the days I'm not in the ER and I don't see patients, I would do research. And then in 2013, I noticed that my body started to fall apart. And that's when I was like, I think by 2017, I really couldn't see patients anymore. So here I was publishing in academia, and then I moved over. I decided, I'm not going to look into that part of medicine anymore, and I'm going to do something else. So then I looked into wisdom, because I really wanted to understand how people who looked at life with a bigger lens kind of evaluate life, and that was the wise. And I knew nothing about wisdom, and so I did a research project to define wisdom, and I wrote a book about it called Common Wisdom. And common being what's the common traits they had in common, and wisdom. And I interviewed 60 people across North America.
Okay, let's talk about, you said your body was falling apart. What happened there? Just let us know what's going on and how it affected your body. What exactly happened at the time?
Initially, it started with joint pain. And as I mentioned, I have chronic Lyme disease, and it attacks the brain and the joints. And so initially I had joint pain and random muscle weakness, and I had all these different symptoms, and I was like, wait a second, why? And finally I found out that that's what it was. And I was bitten by a tick when I was in college, and I showed up 5 different bacteria from the tick bite that were just living in my body this whole time, and that's what was causing all these symptoms. And then I don't know, but medicine was so quick to put me in a box, so quick to say, okay, we know this, you must have this, you must have that. And that's when I was like, no, I really want to understand more about the people who don't do that. And that was the wise.
That's really interesting. So you had this tick in you for some time.
No, the tick bite happened in college, but the tick bite carried with it different bugs. And I call them bugs because they're not really bacteria. There's something called spirochetes. They have a spiral body, and those sat in my body this whole time until they manifested.
I see. So it actually put something in your body which stayed in your body. And how long was that in the body? How long was it found there for?
Well, no, we don't know. I just remember when I was in college having a few days, 3 days, where I just didn't feel good and I couldn't write. And I went to the ER at the time, and I couldn't take notes. And I went to the ER, and they couldn't find anything. And that's all I remember. What's from that? So it sat there, and I think the idea is my immune system would start to tank. And so that's when the bugs took over. And so 2013, we probably had a lot of stress going on, and that's when it started kicking in.
So you had chronic Lyme, it was diagnosed as chronic Lyme disease, is that correct?
Yes.
And how common is common Lyme disease?
So tick bites are common on the east coast of the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
They're not as common on the west coast, but not common. I always say this, doesn't mean never. It means it's rare. And I was one of those rare people.
Oh, wow. And so how has it affected your life? I know you've become weak. I know you have problems with controlling your muscles. How has that affected your daily life?
So I can't walk.
Okay.
And I can drag myself from one room to the other, but I can't really walk. But I can use my brain and upper body. So that's what led me to do the project and to write the book.
Okay, but I don't quite understand about you can't use your brain. You're obviously using it now. Are you talking about because it's been disabled from the point of view you can't use your muscles?
I can use my brain.
Okay, so you can use your brain. Right, okay. But it's just the controlling of your body muscles and obviously you speaking, you handling a cup, for instance.
Yes. Well, I know my upper body works. I can carry a cup fine. It's my lower body.
Okay, so you didn't stop it from you achieving things in life. You was a physician, and
but that was before. So yes, I went to med school, and then I did my residency, and then I did extra years of training, research training, to learn how to do research. And this was all before I developed symptoms. And it did stop me from writing the book because, in a way, and I tell this to people who wonder, why, how could it? I'm like, it just made it harder, but it didn't make it impossible.
Yes.
And harder means it's doable. It's achievable, but it's not impossible, and it just needs more work. So
okay, that's great. I'm glad that you carried on with the book. Well, what was it about exactly, and what was it to achieve?
So I didn't like how medicine and people were just so quick to put me in a box and to label me. And to assume that I was X or I had this when we didn't know at the time. And so then I thought to myself, who are the people who do think outside the box, who are kind of more open-minded? And that's when I thought about the whys. So then I looked into wisdom, and wisdom is very anecdotal. It's very subjective. And so then I was like, well, let me do a research project and figure out more about wisdom. So I scientifically defined wisdom as 8 elements by interviewing 60 people across North America. And the 60 people were ages 50, 60, and 70. And so they're 50 to 79. And the 8 elements in my book, Common Wisdom, that I found were, and let me tell you, they're resilience, kindness, positivity, spirituality, humility, tolerance, creativity, and curiosity. So resilience, kindness, positivity, spirituality, humility, tolerance, creativity, and curiosity. And that because I'm a scientist. I'd like to break things down.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I broke it down, and that's how I defined it.
Okay, so just give us an example in the book, what and how it helps people. So give a practical example how that book is going to help.
So I think, first of all, the people I interviewed, 60 people, were me. They're fascinating. And I say the number one characteristic was resilience, because these people, majority, and it's in order of what they had in common. Resilience was the first thing they had in common, the most prevalent, and the people had really overcome huge obstacles.
Okay.
Yet they were not upset. They were not bitter. They did not say, why me? Instead, it was more of, why not me? I can do it. And it was fascinating. And this led me to believe that things happen for you and not to you. And I say that it's hard for you to kind of, like, for example, even myself, like in 2015, remember 2013, or 2017, for example, when I stopped seeing patients, I never would have thought for in a million years that whatever happened would have led to me writing a book. You know, I was so sad that I wasn't seeing patients anymore.
Yes.
I never would have thought in a million years, but there was a bigger picture, and I didn't see that bigger picture.
Of course.
And I had no idea. I didn't view it like that. And so it's easy for all of us to kind of look at the there and now, but I think it's important to realize there's a bigger picture to everything. And I even now, I keep saying to myself, things happen for you and not to you.
I like those two things. First of all is, why not me? I can handle it. And because you said that before, just previously, and that's such a powerful thing. Why not? It's there to help you grow. It's there to help you become a stronger, better than you, right?
Yes.
And with what you've just said, that's very inspirational to just change that narrative at that instance can actually make you become a much better version of you just overnight, just by flipping that narrative.
No, it's funny because I always tell someone to live in faith and not live in fear. Live in faith, don't live in fear. And it's because I must have lived in fear my whole life. And I didn't know what faith was, and I wasn't spiritual. I didn't know. But had I known that, okay, things will work out, that I wouldn't have been so nervous or anxious all the time. And I agree with you. It's all perspective. I was reading about someone saying, well, how could you not be bitter and realistic about the current hurricanes that happened? How could you? And I'm thinking, well, what is that going to do for you? What is it going to do for you? Being upset about the hurricanes is not going to do anything for you. Like, I interviewed someone in my book, and when I say fascinating individuals, these were fascinating individuals. She had lost 2 husbands. And she was like, you really can't control when you were born and when you die. All you can do in between is laugh. And as a result of losing her, I think her second husband, she wrote a book about how life goes on. And she uses, or how the sun shines, and she uses that book for people who have overcome grief, to help them overcome grief as well.
That's really amazing. You've met, not only do you have a great insight to perceive life, but you've made sure you had great insight with other people to create your book, and by that it's fueled your insight again to be positive, to see things in a particular way.
The way I think about it is you have no choice, and that's why we have gratitude journals, right? And so one of the people I interviewed for the book was a minister, and he talked about how gratitude helps anyone get to the other side of an obstacle. And the reason was, and the more I think about it, I'm like, I was never someone who had gratitude journals, but now it's like forced appreciation. It's not why. It's not why. It's more thank you. You know, it's kind of seeing the things you normally would not see and saying thank you.
Okay, but I can only imagine not every day is a gratitude day. You must have some days where it can be negative, or you saying you're permanently on high?
I agree, and I think, and that's probably where I have a hard time. So someone's like, well, what do you do if you're depressed, if you're this, or if you're that? And I think recognizing it is the first step.
Okay.
And I don't get me wrong, there are days I've cried, there's days I see a random person dancing, I'm like, I can't do that. You know, there's days like anything I touch, I'm like, oh my God, I can't do that either. It happens, but the only thing you can do is be grateful. That's all you can do. And so I think about, it's not like I'm happy-go-lucky and happy all the time. No, I'm not positive all the time. No, there are days like that, of course. But I think it just helps you kind of, as I said, it kind of helps you go through life.
Yeah, and I totally see how that helps. I'm a Buddhist myself. So we see life in a particular way, and especially when we chant in the morning and the evening. So gratitude is the core of Buddhism. And so I understand about gratitude and how it helps, and how it helps with the perception of your life and the life force around you. So I totally understand the gratitude concept, and it does work. Well, it works for me anyway. But I'm just amazed how, you know, your life was a certain way. It was then taken away from a job that you loved, a life that you loved, and yes, you feared, but this has given you a rebirth in life from the point of view you're not fearing anymore. How strange is that? In general, you're not fearing anymore because you used to live a life of fear.
I look, I'm sad, but days can be very sad.
Of course.
I have a hard time. I believe in being as independent as you can be.
Yes.
And don't ever depend on someone doing something for you, do yourself type thing. But now I'm in a situation where I'm very dependent. And I'm very dependent on holding someone's hand, on help. So I am sad, but I also feel like I have been given like a reroute in life. You know, I was busy seeing patients and working in high intensities, like in the ER. And it was just, now I feel like I have a different purpose.
And that purpose is working for your life force as well as other people's life. It's funny because I've been talking to people. I'm like, those 8 elements they are the 8 that define wisdom, but they're really the 8 to mastering one's life, to mastering your life, to kind of living not just a good life, but living a great life. And when someone thinks about the fact that I broke them down, kind of let you look at all those 8 and say, okay, I'm really good at this. I'm not good at that.
Like, I was never a spiritual person. You know, I did not grow up. I'm Middle Eastern. I didn't grow up with kindness as a strength. I viewed everyone around me thought kindness was a weakness. And so my husband's kind. But so I just feel like when you look at those 8, you say to yourself, oh, okay, this is something that needs more focus. And this is something it doesn't.
Okay, let's get a bit of where you're coming from. I want to know how you lived your life before. So what was it like growing up? What was your energy? What was your personality? Just give us a...
I was, you know, I moved to the U.S. when I was 6. So I'm different. And my energy was kind of like, or in general, I have philosophy of I'll prove you wrong. I'll prove you wrong. You say it can't be done, I'll make it done. And so early on, I probably was kind of ignored because I was just kind of like happy-go-lucky, you know, I was not intense. I was kind of like, like a happy child. Then as I got older, I was kind of like, you know what? You're saying it's impossible. Nothing is impossible. You can make it happen.
So you already had a great mindset from the point of view is that you would never I should never use the word never. You would generally won't let things hold you back. You know, you saw an opportunity in every turn, even though other people would see it as obstacles. You saw it as an opportunity.
I think I think that's where the learning opportunity comes in, is kind of separating your emotions from the obstacle. And so I think, don't get me wrong, it's not emotionally fun. It's not easy. It's not any of those. But it's really important to separate what an obstacle does to your emotions versus how you can tackle it. And so when I think about it, in many ways, when you see an obstacle, you kind of have to say thank you. You have to be grateful, because you have to say to yourself, I can do this. I'll overcome this. And by being grateful for it, you're kind of putting the ball in your court.
Yes.
You're kind of saying, bring it on.
Yes, totally. And that's where the power lies, is when you take ownership of the situation. Because when you take ownership of the situation, you have power to change. But if it's somebody else's fault, if it's another situation's fault, then how can you change the situation? After all, it's not my problem, it's someone else's problem. What can I do about it? So that holds great power, is by accept the situation, and then you can make the changes because it's in your court. That's beautiful. So you were like this from a young age, and
I've always been, when I think about the 8 elements, Brazilian Africanism, I've always had, when you think about resilience, kindness, positivity, spirituality, humility, tolerance, creativity, and curiosity, I've always been positive. But when you look at those 8, I feel like to connect with people, you need to be tolerant and humble, curious, tolerant, and humble, and it just feels like every single one of those elements can help you be a better person. But yes, I've always been positive, because in many ways I kind of view it as the only option, or else you're like down in the ruts. You're all upset.
No, I get that. Now, where does that come from? What influenced you in that way? Or were you always that way? Was that part of your trait, or did that come from someone of great influence, be that your parents, be that someone, an aunt?
No, I would not say my parents were very positive. I would say they were not. They were kind of not near that. I would say that it just probably was me realizing it was something that happened innate in me that I decided, you know what? The only thing you can be is positive. And I must have realized it early on that there's no other option.
That's interesting. But usually that's influenced by something in your life or a trigger.
True, and I think about my kids, and like, for example, they're like, "Mom, you can't walk a dog in the street, Mom. You can't even pick us to practice, Mom. You can't do that." I'm like, this is a gift. Your mom is home all the time. It's a gift.
I love it.
Not leaving anywhere. So yeah, because you can't leave, Mom. You're always down. Like, it's a gift. You get to see me all the time. Or I remember, when we go to places that are big, and if I go with my kids, because I don't have the strength to even wheel myself. If we ever need to use a wheelchair, if I need to leave, I use a wheelchair. And I remember saying to them, like, one of my kids was at 4, and one of them was like, "This is so embarrassing, Mom. You're in a wheelchair. It's so embarrassing." I'm like, "Are you kidding? It's a chair that moves. How great is that? It's a chair that moves."
Oh, wow. Oh, my God. So, are your children similar to you?
I think it goes back to what you said. Them being positive is probably something they're seeing in me. Mm-hmm. They're learning to be what you're saying, positive.
Mm-hmm. And what a great gift to give to your kids.
Oh, it's a great gift. And I say to them all the time, I'm like, what a gift. I'm home all the time, and you're right, and I get to, it's a great gift.
Okay, so you've always been, the majority of the time, you've always been a positive person, always trying to flip the narrative where it's anything negative, you try to see it from a positive point of view. And you've gone through your life from that stage, even though you went through chronic Lyme's disease. Is that the case? You're still positive. You still flip that on the head, and it's giving you an opportunity to do your book and still help other people, and you're still positive. And I just wanted to put it out there to the listeners, because I'm always trying to say to the listeners, no matter how difficult it is, you can still be successful in life, no matter what. Be you neurodivergent, or in your case, you had this situation that happened to you, and yet you still achieved, as you said, you did this book. It didn't mean you couldn't do it. It just means it was harder, but you still resilient and you still went for it.
It's in many ways. So when I wrote the book, I was getting active treatment for Lyme. Mm-hmm. And the Lyme is a sparky, so it's a bug. There are many. I have 5. But it kind of would go in deeper to burn away from the stuff I'm giving to kill it off.
Yes.
So I tried antibiotics, I tried oxygen, I tried different things. And as I was doing it, I was like, well, it sucks, don't get me wrong, but the Lyme was causing me to wake up at like 1:30 in the morning. Mm-hmm. And that's when I would write the book. Okay. Is at that time, because I was awake. And that's what led me to, have the peace and quiet. It was like, it sucked, I was tired, but it led me to do it then. I would go back to sleep around 5 in the morning, but I was able to write during that time.
So was it not possible to remove the Lyme?
It is, and it all depends on look, everybody's different. And I say that to every condition, every situation, everything's different. And yes, and so I tried many different things to kill off these bugs, and they have not worked. But I'm confident it will. Something will work one day.
So the bugs are still in you.
What?
Are the bugs in you still?
In 2022, I tested positive for all of them. And so now I don't know how many are still there. I don't know what. I don't know. But yes.
So the technology isn't out there to remove the bugs?
Well, I think I've done so much. I'm sure I've cut it down from 5 down to I don't know. I'm sure I have. But I haven't retested. I should probably retest. And
okay. Where do these bugs reside usually?
In your blood. They're in your body, in your blood.
Oh my God. I'm so sorry. And now, is it a case that if those bugs are removed completely, you'll get your movement back? Or
yes, it should be. The problem is it did attack my joints and my brain.
Okay.
And that's why I developed the weakness I did. And the idea is you get rid of the bugs, your symptoms should improve. So, yes. But, yes, are there situations where people don't improve? I'm sure. But I've spoken to many different people who had chronic Lyme, and they were treated for it and they didn't get better. So it all depends. But I think I will. I'll get better.
Well, I hope so. You've gone through enough, and if there's a possibility to remove them, so I hope that will happen soon enough so you do get better. But after this, no matter what, as always, you become stronger out of it. I mean, it's not nice going through this.
No.
But I am so amazed how your resilience just amazes me. It's not like you was born like this, so you don't know any better. But
no, I was in med school. I went into emergency medicine. I was running around all the time.
I know. Absolutely amazing. But you're still smiling. Listeners, if you look at this lady, she's talking, but she's just smiling and she's getting on with it, and she's just trying to help as many people as possible. And that's just so inspiring. And Laura, I really appreciate you coming on here it is very inspiring how you're so positive and you're smiling at the same time. So
one thing I know you're going to ask is, how are other people going to learn from these 60? And I really want people to learn from them, because one thing they were, as I said, they were very resilient. They had overcome huge obstacles, and yet they were okay with it. And so one thing it's on my book on wisdom is on Amazon, but it's also the website I used to recruit the 60 was called the wisdomresearchproject.com. And that links to my website, lauragabayan.com. And because Laura Gabayan is a hard name to remember, I just direct people to the Wisdom Research Project. But why don't you look up Con Wisdom and see? You can see it as well.
No, definitely. All right. So, fortunately, we have to put a line in the sand. But I just find you so, fascinating. How can people? Number one, you said Amazon is where they can get the book. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's on Amazon and a bunch of different booksellers as well. And I know that my website, lauragabayan.com, and the Wisdom Research Project both go to the Amazon link. Okay,
and have you got any interesting projects coming up for the future? Have you got any plans?
So I am working, I'm done with a journal for the book. And it's more of, I really want, so the book is arranged. First of all, it's very easy to read. very short, and every chapter has questions after it.
Mm-hmm.
If people start thinking about topics. And the reason it's easy to read is because me being the scientist, so boring soldier, my editor, I told him, I'm tired of writing and publishing pieces of paper manuscripts that are so boring, and I want to make sure this is not that. And we made sure that it's so easy to read and so easy to understand. But out of all the podcasts I've done and all the views I've gotten, those final sentences or the things to ask yourself or thought questions people love. So I'm done. I've written a journal with more of those questions.
Wow. Well, watch this space. It's something to look forward to.
That will come out in like December, probably.
Okay. All right. Okay. Looking forward to that. Have you got, before we finish up, have you got anything that we're missing that you want to say to the listeners that could help them or anything at all?
I just always believe that one should live in faith and not in fear. And that as obstacles happen in life, and life is hard, as the obstacles come about, remember that things are happening for you and not to you.
And good words of wisdom for sure. So how can they contact you, get through? I know you've mentioned a few ways to contact you, but I will put the information down below. But how can they contact you?
So the wisdomresearchproject.com is linked to my website, lauragabayan.com. And I think Laura Gabayan has the contact section, so they can get in touch with me with that website. And of course, the book Common Wisdom is on sale on Amazon as well.
Okay, and listeners, what I'll do is I'll put the information down below to make it easy for you to copy, paste what you do, or click away. It's definitely something that to look into, especially the book. Listen, if the lady in front of us can just go through everything she goes through, who are we to argue, right? There must be some words of gold within that book for sure. And with that said, Laura, thank you for being with us today. Really appreciate it.
Me. It was great to have you on the web. I mean, great to be on your podcast. Thank you.
No problem. So it's a pleasure for sure. In the meantime, listeners, sayonara until next time.